Good morning, everybody. Thank you all for joining us for this month's Community of Practice webinar. We are very fortunate to have Andy Barker as our speaker today. I love listening to and learning from Andy. He brings a lot of energy and a lot of knowledge to really anything. And he's also very much about you and making sure that the information that he has delivered to you has been received and internalized, and it can help you, and following up to make sure that you have got it taken care of you. I could definitely go on and on and on because I have had lots of experience and time to spend with Andy, but today is about him sharing some information with you about burnout. So I know that he's got a jam-packed schedule of information to review with you. One of the things as far as housekeeping that I would like to share with you is if you have a question for Andy, please put it in the chat. I will be monitoring the chat for him, and I will be interjecting as appropriate. And at the end of the presentation, we will either go over what's left in the chat or we will open it up for you all to ask any questions. Please also make sure that you have your phones on mute so that we will not be a distraction to Andy while he is presenting. And if there is anything else that I can help you with as we spend this hour together, please do drop that also in the chat and let me know. So again, phones on mute, drop what you have as far as questions or comments in the chat. And Andy, we're going to let you get started.
Okay, well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I think, as advertised, we're going to be talking a little bit about burnout, but I believe Jessica was going to share a quick poll with us before we started, because maybe the answers to the poll are going to reveal to us that we just call it quits and go home, talk about something completely different. But there you go. You should have the poll in front of you. If you could have a read, pick one, hit submit, and then with the magic of Jessica in the background, we'll see what happens.
Give it a couple more, Andy. We got a couple more people still participating.
Okay. No problem. So I'll give you a little bit of background while you're looking at that. I've spoken to a lot of safety professionals over the last weeks, months, and actually longer. And it kind of hurts when I hear people are stressed. Some people are wanting to change professions. Some people are struggling. I think the way I would phrase it is for people to see the value that they bring to organizations, or trying to work out, how it is that organizations should engage with them to get the value out. Either way. Okay. Valued. Okay. So not too many. Well, there you go. So we've got burnout to brilliance, but there's still burnout there, undervalued, disengaged, neutral. So, okay. Thank you very much. I think that our profession is one of the most ethical, value-added professions that on the planet, to be honest. And if we can figure out how to deliver the services that we bring to organizations, I just think the rewards are enormous for us personally, professionally, and for the organizations around us. So thank you for sharing that. I'm going to see if I can host disabled participant screen sharing is a message I didn't want to see right now. If somebody could press a button and let me share my, there we go. Okay. So there we go. You should, with any luck, be able to see is it a slideshow or is it, right, there we go.
There
Is
you
that
go.
working?
Yeah, you're
Okay.
good.
So I don't know how many, saw the little promo video that we posted, LinkedIn, a few other places on the website. But I didn't want to talk about, experience with safety and the context of incidents and accidents and so on. I really wanted to share, what's it like to be in the profession and what's it like for operations to work with the profession. So that kind of experience, if you like. Because what this all boils down to, what I'm trying to get to, is engagement is emotional, right? So many organizations out there are struggling to understand, emotions in a business context, and what should we talk about, how should we bring it up. A lot of it is reactive, trying to work from the back end forward. So what I wanted to do is talk about, the level of engagement. I don't think a neutral response is okay. We shouldn't be coming to work and kind of going, nah, it's just okay. It's just a job. There's so much passion, enthusiasm that we should be having for our profession. And I think it's hard that we've got people facing burnout. So understanding how engagement is emotional and what to do about that, I think is really important. I don't know how much of you have looked at this, but there's a huge swing towards employee experience in industry, right? I see HR moving in that direction. I see marketing and sales organizations moving in this direction. I see technology moving in this direction. And the idea is, if we can find out what you like and what you enjoy, we can sell you more stuff. But from a business point of view, businesses are moving here because there's a huge advantage to be had in this. And again, I'm just duplicating what I've already put in the little promo video, but just to go over it, do this research for yourself. Employee experience is being pursued by the aforementioned, because according to Gallup, your business is going to get 147% improvement on earnings per share compared to other organizations. It drives higher productivity, 25%. You can read the statistics here for yourself. There is upsides in every business metric that you can think of associated with employee experience. I just want to point out a little bit of a language difference, and I think some of us struggle with that. So I've heard a lot of people talk about the language of the C-suite, right? We need to talk like sales. We need to talk like finance. We need to talk like HR. And that's not to say we need to mimic their, profitability, sales type speak. What it is they're telling the board how we're going to be a better company as a result of what we bring. We're going to make people feel better. We're going to stimulate growth. We're going to stimulate creativity, and so on and so forth. Our language tends to be less bad, and we're pretty sure bad things are going to happen, but we hope that the impact of less bad isn't too bad. So when we get to the Journal of Occupational Health Psychology, National Safety Council, it's less likely to be bad, or a little bit of a reduction in the bad things. And I want you to think about that kind of language as we kind of go through this presentation. I've had some success flipping the language a little bit more towards we're going to be better if. So I don't know if this works. I'm trying to make a thing, but put it in the chat and comment if you want. But I want to piggyback on what I'm seeing in industry, right? So what is our safe X? What's our safety X with the organization, right? And bit of selfless plug, trying to put my own company name in there as well. But I wanted to piggyback on this and understand what's our experience in the profession and what's the experience of others. And kind of what I'm trying to drive at, a lot of our brains tend to make shortcuts, right? This is bias or whatever you want to talk about. But our past professional interactions on safety or with anyone, we kind of hardwire that into our brains and then start predicting the future because brains take a lot of energy to figure things out. So, if we look at our past interactions, then we kind of look for that next time we show up. So we think people are going to show up and say, you're not doing particularly well, or I've got to correct things, or we're always finding fault. Even when people say good things, you still think they're finding fault with you and so on. So what the idea behind a positive experience is, how is it that we in the organization, profession, can create more positivity around what it is that we do, to create that experience that makes people want to engage more with us and still deliver what we want, which is not hurting people, right? We need to make that go away. Timely, if you haven't seen this, have a look at this report. The Harvard Gazette just published this. They've done an 80-year study into well-being, I suppose, in later years, for want of a better expression. They've looked at, Alzheimer's, dementia, things like that. And the kind of conclusion is that, good genes are nice. If your parents gave you good genes, then likelihood is that you're, more resilient and healthy. But very dominant, joy is a better cure for well-being in the long term and in later life. So linking this together, and sorry, I should say specifically, they point at joy being good relationships, not number of relationships, but the quality of the relationships that we have. So I'm going to piggyback on the back of that and say that the challenges facing industry, and you see it all over now, these numbers are going the wrong way. Turnover, quiet quitting, I'm sure many of you have heard, burnout, disengagement, all affecting productivity. We're seeing innovation and creativity go away as well. So the solution that businesses are therefore looking at is employee experience, because engagement comes from I'm happy with where I am, what I do, and how I'm appreciated. And happiness and engagement makes everything better, impacts all business metrics, like I showed you earlier on. So couple of concepts that go behind this. And again, I don't know if the word works, but you see what I'm trying to do. I want to talk a little bit about social risk. I'm going to talk a little bit about power, distance, and energy. And I don't mean that from a power distance relationship thing. I'm going to talk about how far apart we are in agreeing. And energy, I'm more interested in what's going on in your head when somebody powerful talks to you than anything else. So that's I'll go into that in some detail. And the bit that we're all struggling with, how does emotions meet strategy? How do we know what we're doing adds a difference or whatever? So I'm going to give you my life story, but sometime after the dinosaurs showed up, and I hope I hope that my telling the story you can relate to this, because I want to show you how I arrived at the conclusion that I arrived at, and how I've applied this in industry. So I'll talk about this in case studies a little bit later on to show how that works. But I apologize for the AI created images. I said I want you to create a picture of me talking to my chief engineer back in the 1990s, when I was called to his office for a career conversation. And I shouldn't have been there, but I was very fortunate to be there, because I was one of hundreds of very junior people in the Ministry of Defence where I worked at the time. And it was a pleasant conversation. He said, great, you've done explosive safety and you've done quality. That's brilliant. There's great links between explosive safety and quality. That's what you've been working in. We moved you into quality. We are the first Ministry of Defence organization to have a qualified, certified quality management system. This is all great. What I want you to do now is go into health and safety. And I didn't see that coming. And, this in my head, images appeared of how I felt about safety. I don't understand them. It's paperwork. I feel like I'm banging my head off a desk when I talk to safety people. So after that thought came into my head and left, I then thought of myself standing all alone with no friends in a busy train station with lots of people who have direction, and I'm just lost now. I have no idea where I'm going. So, oh, wrong button. So what's going on here is I'm at social risk, right? And I am completely stressed out. There's a person here with a lot of power that's telling me something that he likes, and I'm not sure that I do. But my personal ethics, my professional, life, it doesn't matter anymore, because my instinct in the moment is to stay safe, right? And I need to like what this guy's liking, regardless. So my survival instinct kicks in, and I say, I am so pleased you thought of me. Can I please start Monday? You're a great guy, and I'm really looking forward to this. It wasn't how I felt at all, but there was a little bit of hope in there that perhaps he saw something that I didn't understand, and I may be able to add value in some way that I don't see just now, and I don't feel just now with my interactions, but maybe that's what's going on. I don't know if anybody's heard of this concept of hippo. I wonder if you're looking in the chat. I don't know if I made this up or I heard it somewhere. I can't remember now. But in essence, it's the highest paid person's opinion, right? So once the hippo comes in and expresses the opinion, all other opinions are crushed, right? And we're just going to agree with that person. So I'm going to refer to hippos quite a lot through this conversation, because I think there's a power dynamic in businesses that we need to understand. And really, like I said earlier on, when that power dynamic happens, when somebody expresses an opinion, it affects what's going on in your head, where the brain energy goes. Is it going into cognitive thought and problem solving, or is it going into survival instincts? So that's kind of what I want to talk about. So from this conversation, right, and again, AI generated images, you can see that that's not me, but I'm just trying to say, I'm sitting there with my head in my hands, picturing, paperwork and bureaucracy and being lonely and so on. How is it, what is it that's going on, and how can I figure out how to make it better? And it's kind of like this for me. If you like what I do and I like what I do, then I feel safe. And safe is the antidote for stress, right? You can talk about wellness and mindfulness and things like that. They're kind of, oh, we've got some squiggles going on the screen. We can talk about mindfulness and things like that, but I think really it's safe. That's what we're looking for. And I think, anxiety is a lot of perhaps looking into the future in the hope that you add value in some way. But really, and this is for me trying to interpret Maslow, we're all trying to get to belonging. We're all trying to get to belonging. Belonging is the antidote to fitting in, right? I want to be me. I want to be authentic to who I am and what I want to bring. And that's, that I want to belong as that person in an organization. So how can I figure out what the hippos are up to and put this in the right place? So many years ago, I got a call. I hope that's clear where I'm trying to put the energy into, and I'll give you a couple of examples as we go on. So I'm sitting in an office, and I got a job title, which means that people phone you up with a problem that matches your job title. So I'm sitting down with my boss, who got a call from a client because the client wanted us, or we were delivering a $1 billion project boiling petrol in the northeast of England. And there'd been an accident on site. And our client said, this is important to me, so it's now important to you. The hippo has spoken. So my boss phoned me and the head of construction and said, okay, we're going to be on a call with the project director. And he's going to talk us through just what happened. And he said, yeah, there's an accident on site. A truck fell over, nobody hurt. The reason it is the culture on site is toxic. The safety guy can't handle it, so he's going to get fired. So boss puts the phone on mute and said, Andy, next plane. The construction guy laughed at me. And then the boss said to the construction guy, you go with Andy. So I laughed at him and we both left to go to site. Now, I'm not going to go into detail about the accident itself. That's not really the point. The point here is that where people disagree with each other, where people are arguing and frustrated with each other, the energy in your head isn't going into productive collaboration. And this site had a 40-year history of toxic relationships between union and management and so on and so forth. And safety was weaponized. So when we got to site, we had a look around, it was pretty much sure that, you know, it's broken relationships that are driving the behaviors. It's broken relationships that are driving the accidents that are happening. So let's figure that out. So we arrived on site and we met with a shiny new project manager in his nice suit and beard and mustache and so on and so forth. And before we could even have a conversation about why we were here, what we'd found, he smiled and said, just so you know, there's a drug and alcohol policy in your contract. You've been working on here for 3 months. You have not put this in place, and there is a penalty clause for it. And, you know, I'm a managing contractor. I'm on a client site, and that means that we're the organization between the client and the contractors, right? So we're sitting in the middle of this, but they're your contractors and it's your site. So why do we have to put a drug and alcohol policy in for your people when this is your site, right? And the gentleman smiled and said, we've been trying for 10 years. Culture here is toxic. Your safety guy can't handle it. You should fire him. So his version of social well-being was to put the risk on us to get it done because he needed to look good in front of his boss, and he thought he had a very clever way of doing that. So the hippo spoke. So what do we do? Everything's weaponized on this site. So we need to look at this a little bit differently. So we decided to have a bit of fun. We went to the local toy store. We bought some radio-controlled cars, and there's about 800 people working on the project. And there was some other fun things that we did, but this was really the serious message that we needed to get across. We needed to get this across the line for all the right reasons, not the wrong reasons that we'd been asked to do it. So the idea was this: you drive a radio-controlled car as fast as you can through the cones, round the circle at the end twice, back down through the cones. We log your time, and then we put beer goggles on you. Now, I don't know if anybody is familiar with the term beer goggles. They are something that you put on your face. It does not enhance the appearance of members of the opposite sex. What it does is it blurs your vision as if you're under the influence of drugs or alcohol. So we put the goggles on, and then we say, please, see if you can beat your time. Fortunately, nobody did, because that would have created havoc with our social experiment here. But we asked at the end, okay, so what do you see? What's the message? And they're like, yeah. If you're under the influence of drugs or alcohol, you can't see straight, and you can't drive as fast. Not quite, but it seriously impacts your ability, right? And then we said, okay, let's talk to the fire brigade. So the fire brigade told us some stories about cutting people out of cars, and many of us have experienced this, and I hope I'm not bringing trauma for anybody, but this is a pretty serious thing, right? So we went through that process. They told us about some of the experiences they had, and I said, okay, have we got the message? And they're like, yeah, Andy, the consequences can be significant. We understand that. I said, well, okay, now I'm going to talk. And, if you think about colleagues that you're working alongside just now, it might be obvious if you see a change in behavior and, banging heads off walls and shouting and crumpling up their work and so on. But would you know if somebody very close to you had tried to solve a problem with, look at things in bottles? And they were like, well, we might know. We might know that. And I said, well, okay, so, would you know if somebody was feeling isolated and alone and had lost their direction, wasn't valued, couldn't see how their contribution works? Would you know that person? Would you know if they'd look for a solution in the bottom of the bottle? They're like, well, maybe not. Maybe not. And the fact is there's about 800 people in, 10, 12 different companies here. Would you know if any of them were looking for a solution in the bottom of a bottle? And clearly the answer's no to that. We don't. So it's my job. It's my job to protect everybody on site, but we can only do that if we agree that this is something that we need to do here. So the only way you can attain agreement on anything, and good choice or bad choice, I don't know, but the only way that we could achieve anything is if we align on the importance of what we're doing and the value that it brings. And we talked about experiences that they'd had with friends and family and so on, where somebody was looking for help and they couldn't find it. So we were bringing in a policy to help find people that might need help. But we asked them, right, go away, talk to whoever it is you need to talk to. Let me know what your conditions are to bring this in place. And we backed the hippo out the room, and we had a policy that was signed within days that they've been trying to do for 10 years. I don't think there's anything new or novel in anything that I've just said. It's really just treating people as human beings. But the experience and history they'd had was not being treated like human beings. So the first time somebody showed up and treated them like human beings, treated them like collaboration, the experience that they had led them to the agreement that we had. Okay, and we were able to move forward. So, the power was kind of shared equally in this, and the energy that we had therefore went into collaboration because, we identified that this isn't a weapon, it's an opportunity to keep each other safe and find out people that needed help. And we did find quite a few people that needed help. Okay, back to the pub. So many years later, I worked in the Middle East, and on a Thursday, because the weekend's on a Thursday in the Middle East, we used to go to the pub and we'd debrief after our boardroom experiences. Now there was about 30 companies in the group, so there's the board meetings went on for about a week, and they were all individuals. So I, as a head of function, same as procurement and HR, you would have your own board meeting. All of the CEOs would have their own kind of business specific board meetings. We didn't come together. So we came together in the pub afterwards, and I was saying, well, how did you get on with that then today? And I remembered the words from my own experience way back when. The conversations were like, well, I think they liked it, or I don't think they liked it. So, well, did you build like into your presentation? No, not really. I was kind of saying, from my perspective, this is what it is that I think we should do next. And I just hope they'd liked it. So, okay, so you built like and hope into your strategy. What they were trying to get at was, I feel safe if they like what I have to say, and that removes stress. And if they like the value that I bring, and I hope they do, then that's the cure for anxiety, right? So it's the same conversation. And what I found when I'm hanging out with the hippos is that, they sometimes put their own well-being in front of the well-being of the organization. When they do that, if procurement tries to beat finance and HR tries to beat procurement and operations tries to beat somebody else in pursuit of their own social well-being, then they put the organization's energy in a place where it shouldn't be, because we're stressed if you don't like what we're bringing, if we don't fulfill what it is that you're after. And the interesting bit for me, when I asked the hippos, sorry, tell me about a site visit, tell me about a time you went to another department or one of our companies or whatever. Tell me about that. Then I would hear, well, I found they were doing this wrong. I found I had to correct this. I found, various problems that only I could fix. So the message that I heard was, it's important up the way to be liked and hope that I add value. But when I go down into organizations, it's more important for them to see me as being powerful, right? So it's less, I don't focus on being liked in the hope that I'm adding value down the way. And I think that's wrong, because I think that creates the wrong relationships. So talk a little bit about emotions now. And this is a bigger conversation, so I'm just going to be succinct. But there's two kinds of emotions. There's defensive emotions and cooperative emotions, to be succinct. So defensive emotions kick in to protect our purpose and our values. So if somebody steps or gets in the way of you doing your job or what you think is important, you're going to have a defensive response, right? If somebody doesn't uphold your values, you see the way somebody's treated is, doesn't fit with your worldview, you get defensive emotions. The opposite side of that, where you see, this is going to help. This is going to help the company. This is going to help me. Then you get these incorporative emotions. So you can read various academic papers. There's lots of words missing, but I'll give you an example of why. But the defensive emotions, like I say, the academics kind of end up with these 8. So sadness, disgust, anger, and fear are those defensive emotions. No such thing as a bad emotion, just what you choose to do with it is important. Trust, joy, anticipation, surprise, right, are the incorporative emotions. So if you think of an organization like HR, if you trust them and they always show up and they give you information that's helpful, then trust and surprise is the foundation of curiosity. If you think about pride, that's joy and anger, right? I'm very happy with what it is that I do, what it is that I bring. If somebody brings you down and says that's rubbish what you're doing, then you get the anger response. So all of our emotions kind of in some way are traceable to these 8 and combinations of them. So if we look at the defensive emotions are about values and purpose, and the incorporative emotions are about values and purpose, then let's look at how we can link these together when we put strategies together. So this is personal for me. This is what I decided to do, because when I looked at hippos creating havoc in businesses, I don't think that's right. And I don't think that your social well-being is more important than other people's social well-being. So it's my purpose to ensure that powerful people take care of those with no power, right? Sometimes you know what's right for people, sometimes you don't, but it's important that that's where the energy goes. So given where emotions come from, people incorporate what's important and valuable to them. Then what is that we need to do, and one of my experience is, I need to understand what's important and valuable to all of us and how we can connect and collaborate on that. So I'm gonna give you a tool for that in a minute. So I want people to be accountable for the services they deliver to an organization, but down, not up. In other words, if you're the head of HR, then my employment experience with the company means that I want to do HR's annual appraisal. All employees should do HR's annual appraisal, right? Not your best mate sitting on the board, because when you agree that you failed, it wasn't your fault, and you still get your bonus and your pay rise or whatever it is. So I want you to be accountable to the organization. Now, your services must support your purpose, right? I want you to be true to yourself, true to your foundations, where it comes from, but it needs to connect with organizational purpose in some way. And I think sometimes we struggle with articulating how we link with organization goals. So to support shared purpose, we need a shared perception of importance and value. I am, just for fun, I don't know if anybody watches Black Mirror, but this was, oh goodness me, I think 8 years ago, something like that, where Lacey Was that the show was all about taking photographs of cups of coffee and biscuits and trying to be liked by people that were, that didn't matter essentially. And they took it a little bit further into the Uber realm where, the Uber driver rates you and you get to rate the Uber driver. So Lacey goes in, buys a cup of coffee, and the server rates you, and so on and so forth. And then it went a little bit further to say, you're only allowed to live in certain communities if your social status is above 4.5, right? You can't hire that car, unless your social status is above 4 and things like that. And what interested me about the show is that when you walk into a boardroom, the board look at you, and on a scale of 1 to 5, they rate the value of you to them, not your intrinsic value. So how is it that I find out what's important and valuable to the board? Because otherwise, if I keep doing what it is that I'm doing without knowing that, I'm going to create stress for myself, because my intrinsic value is always going to be higher for myself than you put on me. So with that in mind, here's what I came up with. So importance is not the same as value. I haven't had conversations with senior people that haven't said safety isn't important. But what I have had conversations with people is that it's important, but the way that you do it doesn't bring the value that we want to see. Okay, so if you've got a bit of paper, try this for yourself. So a favorite one, just to take it outside of our profession, I've already mentioned HR. Think about the annual appraisal. When it comes around once a year, the idea is that I get my growth opportunity, I get my pay award for my performance, I get whatever it is that your expectation is that you're going to get out of this process. HR perhaps just want a number in a box so they can distribute a budget for pay rises. And often your intrinsic value isn't borne out by that process. So it's important that we do an annual appraisal, but perhaps the way that we're doing it isn't valuable. So that's the kind of idea. So if you list out practices, try this for, procurement or HR or finance or whatever it is. Think about the processes that you have to go through. Think about the importance that the owner of that process would put on it, scale of 1 to 5. Think about the value that they get out of it. And then think about you as the customer, put your importance and value, and then see where it lines up and where it doesn't. And this is how I look at it. So you can both agree, it doesn't matter where you find agreement. If you both agree it's terrible, then you both agree it's terrible. But you can have a development conversation. So the energy you're having is productive on shared purpose, right? There's not frustration, there's not anger involved in that. You might not be pleased that it's not great performance-wise, but the anger is channeled into something productive, if you like, or the frustration. But it's not frustration in the relationship. If you're kind of one box different on something, then you're going to have an alignment conversation. I don't quite see this the way that you see this. Can you please exchange? So the energy is a little bit more uncomfortable, but the energy is kind of going into establishing common ground and purpose, if you like. If you're 2 boxes different, then you're sitting in a room pointing at each other going, think you find you don't get it. No, think you find it's you that don't get it. That's an uncomfortable misalignment. And this is the start of conflict or silence, right? So we tolerate a lot of practices because of the social risk involved in saying, I can see how important this is to you, I can see how valuable it is to you. It's not the same for me, but I'm just going to keep quiet and carry on and try and get the job done. So anybody that's read Covey, Speed of Trust, things like that, here's an indication of how you can work out the inefficiencies that you have in the organization, because 2 boxes different is a sign that you just don't trust each other. I don't know where your motivations are, and what you value is not what I value. So that's back to the emotions thing, getting in the way of purpose, treading on values. That's how these things come about. So I hope that makes sense. Bring the hippo back in. just give you an example. I've already shown you this. If you work an example like this and then you compare the results, you can figure out where you have alignment and where you don't have alignment. And if you follow, you're accountable for the services you deliver downward, not up. Your services must support your purpose and organizational purpose, right? And we have to get a shared perception of importance and value before we can be productive. Then you can start using this as a source of, what do we have to change and how do we have to change it? The case study that I'm just about to show you goes through this, but there's a lot more detail to it. My suggestion is, if you find that you're aligned on value but not importance, then work about with individuals to work out how to increase the value, because if you increase value, it becomes more important, right? Don't have an importance conversation, have a value-based conversation, and it'll take to a different place. So, like I say, a little bit of a digression, but understanding where the gaps aren't always the same as understanding how to close the gap and how to create that value. Sometimes we just get stuck in, an audit has to be like that, or an inspection has to be like this, or a pre-job brief, or whatever the tools you use kind of have to be like that. But the process that I go through with organizations is understanding where these emotions come from and the misalignments, understanding where the problem worth fixing exists. Sometimes the biggest problem isn't the one that you want to fix, and then working out how is it that we're going to grow the relationships together. And I think storytelling is important. I'll talk about that in a little minute. But identifying where these things are working and the value that it brings helps you create that social movement. And also you need to know what to measure, right? Where are we creating value in the organization? Because that's better. That's more the business language that I talked about earlier on than it is, being less bad or whatever. So slight digression. If I've still got time, just about, quick case study, and I'm still in the Middle East here.
You have 8 minutes, Andy.
Okay, that's not much. I'll crack on. I'm nearly there. So this again is the Middle East, and I was sitting in an office with one of the CEOs, talking about value and emotions and connection and collaboration, and he was just shaking his head at me, saying, it's all rubbish. People get paid; they just need to do their job. And we got a call that there'd been an accident on site. A technician had opened the door on a compressor here to put a drive belt back on. He did it while it was running and lost the fingers of his hand. And he said, see, how can I deal with that? In the interest of 8 minutes, every investigation I've ever done, I take to board and culture. And in this case, procurement lost the fight with finance, because finance said you have to buy the cheapest. They went to a company that they bought on price. The company provided the equipment and the technicians to maintain the equipment. The equipment was old. They didn't have maintenance. They didn't have trained technicians even. There was one engineer on site that taught essentially laborers, but drive belts keep falling off, just flick it back on again and you'll be fine. And the accident happened not because of a safety issue, which it clearly is. It happened because of a business relationship. Finance was just more powerful than procurement, and procurement couldn't get ops what they wanted. The business case, when we reversed it out and allowed procurement to get what they wanted, added a whole load more value to this. And I'm sorry, I'm dancing too quick over that. But the point was, it was a relationship at the board that was wrong, that led to the conditions that created this accident. And it wasn't a safety issue, it's a business issue. Allowing procurement to add their value changed the way that those conversations happened. Very, very quickly, in the Middle East, again, huge issues, but they're business issues associated with relationships at a high level. And because nobody valued safety, they didn't really value each other. We had a whole load of issues, 5 to 7 5 to 15 fatal accidents, 5 to 7 suicides every year. When we focused on how is it that we can collaborate, how do we add value with each other, engineering started supporting HR, supported procurement, supported finance. We drove the business in a different way. We saw the value from employees because we listened to how we had or had not set them up for success. And that changed strategically how we approached everything. So that alignment drove capacity. So I've got a graph there going left to right and up. It grew our relationships, grew our ability to problem solve, grew our ability to think critically, grew our ability to understand the circumstances that we were in because we were aligned in importance and value. And that drove, and again, there's no scale you can see there, but you can see the yellow line coming down. So in 2 years, we eliminated fatal accidents by fixing business relationships. We eliminated suicides by fixing business relationships. Okay, I just wanted to share this. When I was in Vegas in June with you guys, I got this photograph. The gentleman on the left is Arun. Arun was the safety guy that led the construction business that had most of the fatal accidents in the Middle East. We fixed it. And 2-3 years after I left, he's in London picking up an international award because it stuck. They're still outperforming everybody. They're still not hurting people. And that was from threat of losing the business to an industry benchmark inside of 2 years. The 40-year history of silos, we turned that around in 3 months by gaining alignment on what we're trying to do and why. And it doesn't just need to be bad companies. I've taken great performance to award-winning as well. It's relationships that matter. And relationships, to be honest, are the cure for all things. And I think I better hand it over to Q&A now.
Actually, if you want to review those 2 slides, you do have a couple of minutes left. And anybody who does have a question, please drop that in the chat. And once Andy reviews the slide, then we can get those answered.
Yeah, no, these are the selfless plugs at the end, so I don't have to go through them. But I think the important thing is understanding that we're all human beings at the end of the day. And a lot of the disconnects that we find is that we're not understanding how to talk to senior people in a way that they understand, because they're trying to add value. They're trying to create safety for themselves. They're trying to create well-being. That's how our brains are wired. And the lack of engagement that we see is like, I get it, it's important, but I just can't see the value. And I'm sorry to say, the intrinsic value sometimes that we offer organizations is not the reason why they engage with us. I'll just go back to this. The reason that I got engagement in the Middle East, is that line at the very bottom right-hand side. And the collaboration improved profit by 25%. That's why they like me. The accidents went away, but it delivered 25% more profit. And back to the very early slides, that's why organizations are chasing employee experience, because of the value that it creates inside businesses. So jump on the bandwagon, I think, would be the answer. I felt I rushed that a little bit. Sorry, and that's completely my fault because content was my job.
You are perfectly fine, Andy. If there's something that you want to reiterate, as you just did, please feel free to do that.
Yeah, well, okay, but no, I think we should allow people to talk and ask questions, if that's okay. I think I saw something popped into my screen there.
Yes, so don't have a first name, but the comment was great topic and presentation, Andy. How can we show that same value? Question 1. And question 2, do you have any workshops? So you can take those in any order you'd like.
Yeah, that's It is a good question, and I think I think that's why I put the picture up at the end there. I do have workshops for sure. If you want to send me an email, andy@orgtree.me, then I can talk you through those workshops. But I it starts with understanding social purpose. It starts with understanding values, because I think a lot of companies don't understand values, right? They kind of have words that are externally focused to look good to clients, um, or they try and make values into a business model, which they're not. Values are ways of treating each other. They're guidelines to treat each other. So going through that process, I think, is important. And it also engages leadership, and I think that's language that we need. If you consider that leaders own the vision of the company, the purpose of the company, and I would prefer the term social purpose. What do you do that benefits the world? They also own the values. So figuring out what values are in operation, and that's what drives collaboration, the emotions that we have with each other. If you can have that conversation at the board level, then you've engaged them, because they can see how they're both part of the problem potentially, but also how they should be part of the solution. And it kind of takes it away from that one less accident, five less accidents, more inspections, audits, more observations. It's how you run the company. So I think that's why I went through the presentation today, where you see the misalignments in value. It's up to the board to say, well, let's collaborate to increase the value that we get out of this. I rambled a bit there. Does that answer the question?
We got a couple of thumbs up, so lots of people obviously had that same question on their mind. Thank you. That
Hi,
was from
Joanne. Okay.
Joanne.
Yeah.
All right, so Sherry
Yay.
says that she is starting her first case study and storytelling journey. So we look forward to hearing about that from Sherry. Sherry, do you have any questions for Andy about how you can ace that? And then while we wait to hear from Sherry, Andy, any advice for her as she embarks on her journey?
Yeah, I think storytelling's huge, huge thing. I came to it late in life, and then realized I can create social movements through the stories that we tell. You know, before we were able to write things down, we told people how to behave in the tribe through stories, and how to protect the tribe. And we're still Stone Age programming 1.0. You know, our brains sync up when we tell stories. So where you find stories of people doing good things, share stories about people doing good things, because it's a feel good, and now people know how to contribute to the tribe. So back to Joanne's point, I run master classes in how to listen to stories, how to create story strategies, how to drop what story into what group, and how to tell it, and how to tell the story of a future, and then build the social movement that delivers exactly that. And all of those are about contributing to success, right? I think we still get hung up on the less bad, or tell us about bad things so we can make bad things go away. And what the board wants to hear is, how do we create? How do we create? So yeah, good for you, Sherry. Great to see you here. And yeah, I want to hear about your storytelling journey. It's really important.
All right, we'll take this last question, Andy, and then wrap it up. Any chance you have written a book on this topic? And maybe a little prod for some future project for you.
I, you know, I think I ought to. I was told by a colleague years ago to write all of this down in a book. So do you know what? I put a framework together. Do you hear the negative language there? The words that I'm
Mhm.
holding myself. I'm going to write that book. Okay, done.
Yes, you have committed. We are witnesses. We will hold you accountable.
That was public, wasn't it? Fair
So, as Andy
enough.
said, if you have any questions for him, if you would like to connect or engage with him, please do reach out to him. It's andy@orgtree.com. Look, you already got pre-orders for your book.
.me.
Okay.
Org.me. Yeah, there you go. Jessica's put it up there. Thank you, Jessica. I will
Yes,
pre-order your
my
book.
sincere apologies. Andy@orgtree.me. I'm very programmed into the other stuff, so I
I get
apologize
it.
for that.
Do you know, I want just, this is meaningless and pointless. There's a whole reason why org tree in the background. It's about connecting as one entity, right? But I wanted to get org tree us, which is US, and I wasn't allowed it because I'm not a US citizen. So .me is from the Middle East, right? Because they're
Um,
like, yeah, you can have whatever you want as long as you pay for it.
that's usually how commerce works, right?
Yeah, but I thought, okay, org tree me instead of org tree us. I'll live with that.
All right. So reach out to Andy at andy@orgtree.me with any questions. We are holding you accountable, and we've already got some pre-order sales for your book, so we'll be looking for that in 2025. Just a couple of community announcements for you. If you all have been following us on Facebook or LinkedIn, you've seen that we've been advertising, or even the newsletter that Jessica puts together that goes out via email. Then you've heard about the Fireside Chat Focus Group, and we have 5 spots available for that. So please do, if you're interested in the focus group, sign up before those 5 spots are gone. The recording of Andy's presentation today will be made available. So anybody who might have come in late or just want to rerun some things, you will be made aware of when the recording for that presentation is available. And you can take a look at it on our website at colearning.org, or you'll see it in the newsletter, and you'll also see it on LinkedIn when it is ready for you all to view. So, Andy, thank you, thank you, thank you. It is always, again, a pleasure listening to and learning from you, getting a chance to hang out with you. We greatly do appreciate you being a partner with the community of human and organizational learning. And you did kind of glaze over the fact that you won that award in June.
I did. I'm
You
very proud.
did. You did. Congratulations again on that. And we are going to wrap up the call today. Any final words before we do that, Andy?
I the best antidote there is to burnout is outstanding success, right? So that's why we're here in this community. That's why we share information, because we want to help each other be successful. So let's get it done. Got a lot to offer. Got a lot to offer.
Perfect. Thank you. And you all have a great day.